This evening we celebrated the centenary of the Solohead ambush, which took place on the 21st of January 1919 on this very spot at the gate here behind us. And that gate, fortunately, is exactly as it was 100 years ago, and we're very lucky that the site has been so well preserved for the last century indeed.
We've been doing this commemoration probably for the last 35 years, and we always assemble, we say around 2:15 at Coffey's Forge, and we march down, and the pipe band, they are absolutely done, were absolutely brilliant, and in the lead into the site here.
We knew there would be a good crowd for the centenary. However, I'd say the crowds exceeded our expectation. Because of the narrowness of the road, it's very difficult to judge how many people were actually here, but certainly we were extremely pleased. Every single inch of space was taken up.
When I became chairman of Soloheadbeg Brigade, I decided there was two things I had to do. One was to put up a plaque up here and put the names of the people on it.
There was a new surround done around the walls, and there was a new plaque inserted, and we'll say there's an awful lot of organisation goes into this, and again we'll say the Soloheadbeg Brigade Old Irish Commemoration Committee would have put serious work into this over the last 3 years.
If we don't keep the flag flying, what will happen in 10, 20 years' time won't be even heard. They won't even know what happened here. So it's very important that we ensure that we drive it on, drive it on. And that's what we try to do. We try to get younger people, and we have younger people taking part as well,
By the fact that we come here and remember, other people will pick up on that, and they will remember what happened here, and the narrative will be continued, please God, for another generation. We are the 3rd Tipperary Brigade Old IRA Commemoration Committee. We commemorate, we honour, we remember, and we keep that going for the volunteers of the brigade who fought all during the war to establish and defend the Republic. And that's our raison d'etre.
If you see, we've a monument put up here now, and to answer a lot of questions I got in that 24 hours, the old one has been taken away at the moment because it has gone loose on the plinth, and if someone caught it, maybe get up and just come back on top of him and break his legs. So it will be back, but we have to repair it and put print in it, So that's to keep people happy. I got nearly attacked over it. But anyway, I'm used to them things. The building around at the back was done by John Mooney, who is a great-grandnephew of Phil Shanahan. And of course Phil Shanahan was a mighty man in the Dublin scene in the IRA. And Rémy Shanahan is also a grandnephew of his. Now, I just told you about that, and we have no one, and the others coming back. So I think I'll get the chairman of the Soloheadbeg Brigade Old IRA to unveil it now. Just unveil it before we start our business.
Can you see the... No worries.
So well spoken by so many have been offered here today, and thanks be to God. In those words, he very quickly uttered them first, because so good were so many.
Absolutely. So good were so many.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. Now we'll have the wreath laying. I'm not so sure how many, because I was very involved in the bigger one back behind. Who does? Sally, if you're, yeah, Sally. Right. Yeah, you can lay it, yeah. Yeah, do it, yeah. Do it on behalf. Yeah, come up here. Yeah, come up around there.
Give me a run.
Yeah. When you move along, come up alongside Sam. We'll do it together.
Oh, maybe not, Sam.
Do quite no chance.
That's all I'd say. Anybody who's here and anybody who, I just want to say that it is quality.
It's an emotional day, Dad, isn't it? After all the years, a lot of you were coming here on your own, and look at all the people that are here now.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
It is a proud day.
the other place that is trampled on days of big games is
Thank you very much. Thank you.
As you'll recall, Billy Maguire was always here with the harp, and he was unable to attend today, so he sent a wreath to be laid by Anthony Ryan. Laid a wreath for on behalf of the IRB. Now we'll have the rosary, a decade of the rosary. So would you like a full rosary?
We're long enough.
Josephine Carroll, who was a daughter of Paddy McCormick's. And he was, so it's wonderful to have you here. Pity, is Joe here? Is Joe here? Joe was a great supporter, but he was here early and we have delay. So now, I know things are going a bit cockeyed with me now as well, but look, we have a beautiful, great, terrific crowd here. It's fantastic, it's such a crowd because, particularly with what went on back in Solohead behind the church was fantastic. It was very well run. Now, the rosary, please.
None of na hargus an bhí go a spirit nave, amen. Or na har tar nav, go nave the tanam go take the riak, go yentr the holler and dollar mar yentr nav. He's in the car, lik sin the car walks here, She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui to an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui to an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui is of an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui of an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui of an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui of an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui of an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui of an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She the vaver at along the grass to tauntier na let the spanna ha hui of an orcus, a spanna ha torres of rinny earsa. She'll have where along the grass, the Tantir and the Lat, the Shalna who is ever know, because the Spanish has told of any Easa. Glory to Nahar, agus an Vach, agus an Spirit Nave. Gonina dia chokra order. Nani Manahar, agus an Vik, agus an Spirit Nave. Amen.
When we're also upset about being called here and being delayed, we were thinking the men to give weeks here, waiting to strike the blow. So you should all still feel very good and very happy, even if you're called yourself, we're all called. But those poor men live out there and hungry and bad clothes and everything, to give us what we have and to let us be here today. Now, I won't talk much longer about that. There's people prepared to sing songs. I got a few names here. Already, is Margaret O'Dwyer there?
Yeah. This song, ladies and gentlemen, was written by John Hess almost 30 years ago. So. Hooray for the Hill, sang the old monarchy, and your sons and daughters who made Ireland free. When I was a-calling, it was through that time, and no Peter was safe from sweet Bohertime. In Soloheadbeg you were Tracy, in the Hill and Breen, and all over Tipperary her colours were green. Green, white and orange I wore without caring, for it was the true colours of her lovely Erin. Here's the toast to the Hill, and a toast to the past, and a toast to all Ireland, from Cork to Belfast. May the spirit of freedom in our lands ever dwell, from the banks of the Shannon to the town of Clonmel. Here's to Bold and Lacey, to Dalton and Crewe, and to Arthur, Tipperary, Column's brave crew. You be the Tans and the Oxys and the Crown Spies. For your country you lived, and for her you died. Tonight I send greetings to friends far away, from the heart of the Hill on this winter's day. We still love our martyrs and bold fighting men who fought for our freedom o'er hill, vale and glen.
What a beautiful voice. Now Mary Toohey from Tipperary, a member of the musical dynasty in Tipperary town. So Mary is going to sing a song for us.
In the year of 1920, one cold November day, Dublin and Tipperary, a challenge they did play. 10,000 loyal supporters converged on Jones's Road. They could not have imagined such terror would unfold. The game was barely started, and the crowds they roared and cheered, when in the sky of Hill 16 a British plane appeared. A red flare was the signal for murder to begin, by scumbags known as black and tans, who masquerade as men. They scaled the walls of Croker, those drunken Saxon swine, with rifles and machine guns, wildly they fired blind. The slaughter of our people by forces of the crown. Again they showed no mercy, even children were gunned down. 13 souls were butchered without warning, and among them was Grange Muckler's favourite song. Crook Park's green grass ran crimson red round the spot where he lay dead, killed by Cornwall's own men. Mick Hogan was his name. They said it was reprisal for the killing of their spies, who'd come to infiltrate us to halt our nation's rise. But when those towns invaded, vengeance was their aim, to seek out and assassinate the leaders of Sinn Féin. And when those towns invaded, murder was their aim. Unarmed folk were coldly shot as they watched their native game. But the brave Tipperary captain they callously did slay, as he proudly led his county upon the field of play. 13 souls were butchered without warning, and among them was Grange Muckler's favourite song. Crook Park's green grass ran crimson red round the spot where he lay dead, killed by John Bull's malicious men. Mick Hogan was his name. As a tribute to his memory, it's called the Hogan Stand. In its shadow, hear our anthem, played by the Artane Band. We never will forget him, for his name it will live on. He died on Bloody Sunday, the gale from Slievenamon. 13 souls were butchered without warning, and among them was Grange Muckler's favourite song. Crook Park's green grass lay crimson red round the spot where he lay dead, killed by Cornwall's vicious men. Mick Hogan was his name.
Thanks, Mary. I forgot to And he forgot to invite all the public representatives. We started, but sure, look, I'll just do it in one word. All public representatives, along with you all, you're all welcome. And maybe there's some of you more important than some of the fellas on my left. We don't know. Last night I was in Care in Cashel, with Derek Warfield and the young Wolf Tones. So I was speaking to Derek there after. He said he would love to sing a song here. So he said he'll sing us A Nation Once Again. Derek.
Thank you very much. It's a great honour for me to be here today. I was asked by John Hassett about 6 months ago to be present at this commemoration. I spoke on 2 occasions about 20 years ago, indeed of the importance of a remembrance of our patriots and our heroes. And I've always reminded people through my life of performing songs and ballads and music of Ireland that our musical tradition has carried the hopes, the dreams and the aspirations of the Irish people. It has strengthened our nationality and identity, and we'll never know what we owe to our musical tradition. And as most of you here know already, indeed our aspirations for freedom and liberty always went hand in hand with our traditions, our culture and heritage. They are part of our nation and they are treasures of immeasurable value. So when I sing the songs, as I've done over the last 55 years and brought them around the world, I know I'm reminding people of our history. I'm reminding people that since the earliest texts of Irish history, music has been a very, very important part of how we remembered those men and women indeed that fought for our freedom and liberty. So I'm here today at the invitation of John Hassett and all the folks here in Tipperary that have valued our tradition. When I think of all the men and women in this county that put their lives on the line to preserve our heritage and tradition, in these mountains our history was written by Godfrey Keating in impoverished conditions. Such was the secrecy of his words that we don't know where he was born, where he's buried, or where he was educated. The man lived in secrecy because to preserve our heritage and tradition was a danger, because the Westminster Parliament and Crown wanted to destroy forever that our history and heritage ever existed. And we should never forget that. I don't know all the motives why these men and women of Tipperary took up arms, but I do know this much. They had watched the misery, destitution and devastation of successive parliamentary representatives in Westminster through the 19th century. There was the humiliation of Henry Grattan and the closure of the Parliament back in 1801. The great Irish-American father of American chemistry, William James McLevin, said that the representative of the smallest village in England would have more clout in the Westminster Parliament than the whole representatives of the people of Ireland. Dr. William James McNevin was a great Irishman, and if Wolfe Tone's rebellion had been successful, he would have been part of a very powerful Irish government in the early part of the 19th century. We would have been saved. Indeed, the humiliation of Dan O'Connell, who indeed for 30 years pleaded with the Westminster Parliament to restore that Parliament to Dublin. He failed. Isaac Butt, who was a good and generous man, said the tenants of the Glen Bay estate in Donegal would have been better to take up arms rather than being pushed out onto the roadside and die of starvation. Charles Stewart Parnell indeed was humiliated. All our leaders And let no man or woman here today go away thinking that the motives of these men that took up arms here in Tipperary were indeed, they were motives of the highest unselfish standards. And we should remember them with that. Now sometimes when I get a microphone in front of me, I can go on and on and on. But I do want to say to you folks, and I know that all the people that are here today indeed are here to honour the courage of these people that took up arms. And I've always remembered them in song. And when I look back in history and I sing the songs, I remember the achievements, and above all, I remember the dedication of the poets, indeed, who celebrated and commemorated our heroes. So I'm going to finish by asking you all to join and sing with me. And if I can be asked to join and sing the song with me, A Nation Once Again, written by Thomas Davis, one of our great patriotic poets, indeed, who wrote and left us a wonderful legacy and heritage of poetry, prose, and indeed writings. A Nation Once Again. When boyhood's fire was in my blood, I read of ancient free men of Greece and Rome who bravely stood, 300 men and 3 men. And there I prayed I yet might see our fetters rent in twain, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again. A nation once again, a nation once again, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again. It whispered too that freedom ark and service high and holy, that would be paired with feelings dark and visions vain and lowly. But freedom comes from God's right hand and needs a godly train, and righteous men will make our land a nation once again. Together. A nation once again, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again, a nation once again, a nation once again, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again.
Thanks very much, that's really got us to go. I happened to be at the show last night, and I can tell you that if Derek Warfield and the Wolf Tones are anywhere within 100 miles, go and listen to it. It was brilliant last night. Now we'll call on Joanne to read the proclamation.
Public na Héireann. The Provisional Government of the Irish Republic to the people of Ireland. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment, and supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the Irish people to the ownership of Ireland, and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies, to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right, and again asserting it in arms in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare, and of its exaltation among the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to, and hereby claims the allegiance of every Irish man and Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all the children of the nation equally, and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government, which have divided a minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland, and elected by the suffrages of all her men and women, the provisional government, hereby constituted, will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity or rapine. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called. Signed on behalf of the Provisional Government, Thomas J. Clark, Sean McDermott, Thomas McDonough, P.H. Pearce, Eamon Cant, James Connolly, Joseph Plunkett.
Thanks, Joanne. It's Finbar English. Anywhere around is to play a tune on Sean Tracy's. Is he coming? Very good. You won't get lost, he's fine and tall.
This fiddle is extremely old and extremely valued, and in a sense, just when I'm tuning this now, you know, it's a case of you working with the fiddle rather than the fiddle working with you, you know, so. Okay. So I'm just going to play one more slow air into a tune called The Bells of Tipperary, and we'll round it off then for a tune that you all may well know, and it happens to be Michael Maguire's favourite. So.
That's beautiful, isn't it? Now we'll call on the Ross to address us, and I know we've no doubt we're all waiting for it. Now, Ross.
A Cahir Lake, a Hachdi Dala, a Hanadori, Corlori, Gwelton and Oglach, a Hoi growing, agus a Foblathonic na Herden. Cahimera, Gormoran Frible, Dumsa, go Parsanta, Gach Ora Yayam Quirra, Con Laurteg, Okar, Quivnacon, in a most the Lechra na Herden. A Hassan Fo di Naum an Gauther. Fir agus Manau, a vi sausta I Bertrien of Le Digrish, Concierge na Herden of Wintermach, Ni doi fein, ach doin illa. Agus sin an coach gohfuil made Balaha an Shahinov, Conamos a hort das na Lechra Kena. It's always a great privilege, and I'm sure anybody who ever spoke at a commemoration will say the same. It's a great privilege to be asked to speak at a commemoration in honor of the great volunteers who went before us, sacrificed themselves very often their lives, not for any mercenary or personal gain, but for all of us, the people of Ireland. And when I look here today and look around at the gathering, it's inspiring in itself, because it demonstrates once more that we are appreciative of those same patriots without whom we would not have control of our own destiny or opportunity to fulfill our potential. Down through the years, men and women have gathered at historic sites to salute the patriot dead, whether it was in Bodenstown or Kilmichael, or whether it was in Kilfeacle or Duwala, or here in Soloheadbeg. But just as you, the generous-hearted people of Ireland, are doing today and generations have done in the past, there were always people who wished to diminish and misrepresent those sacrifices. There were always people who were prepared to revise Irish history. There were always people who didn't have the generosity of spirit to realize that these men and women were special. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That is the story of Ireland. It's 100 years ago since the birth of Irish democracy, with the inception of the first Dáil Éireann, put there by the mandate of the Irish people, their democratic right. The sad thing was that Britain were not prepared to recognize that right or that democracy, even though she would title herself the Mother of Parliaments. No, instead of that, she inflicted on us a terrible and a cruel war on an innocent people. And bear in mind as well that those who would denigrate our patriots of the past generally have an agenda for doing so. So when we gather here today, we are not subdued in any way, and we are not distracted or led aside by those people, because we know that the majority of the people are Republican, free-loving people at heart. An example of that was in 2016, when we were celebrating the centenary of the 1916 Rising. We saw the manner in which the people responded with pride and admiration and appreciation once they were given the opportunity to do so. I often feel in Irish history that we had many opportunities, but there were many opportunities left dormant as well. And since we achieved our independence, there is no doubt about it, but that we've had many achievements. But it's up to us all as people who are beneficiaries of the sacrifices of our patriots to make a determined contribution to developing the full story of Ireland. we all have that opportunity. Yes, it's time for bridge building between communities, between traditions, between different factions, between ideologies which might seem incompatible, and of course between nations. But even those at times who endeavoured to build bridges, they too were denigrated. We need only look at John Hume, for instance, in the north of Ireland, and the opportunities that he sought, and yet he was misrepresented as well. That's why I feel the 3rd Tipperary Brigade of the old IRA, who have kept faith with the past and who have ensured that year in and year out people would gather here so that we would remind ourselves the character of the Irish people and also what we suffered. Now bear in mind that we suffered down through the centuries, because if you look at the famine of genocidal proportion inflicted on us again by Britain, it's a wonder that we ever got out of the abyss of despair which was inflicted on us. But of course we had always people who came forward and told us that we were a people that should get up off our knees and strike for the freedom of our country. Tipperary perhaps has one of the most illustrious and effective roll of honour in our quest for independence. The names come easily to us. There are hundreds of them. We have Tracy and Lacey and Breen. We sing about them because we do believe that they were the people who best represented us. We have McCann, we have Shanahan, we have Leahy, and hundreds of others who gave their all for Ireland, but not just themselves, but bear what they had to bear. Just think for a moment, even here after Soloheadbeg, they went on the run, they lived in the ditches, they lived out in inclement weather, and many of them suffered forever afterwards. It was never easy to be an Irish patriot. Yes, and there were people to help them, and there were safe houses, and that again was the story of the IRA down through the decades. I believe myself that there is no country in the world that best deserved its freedom, because if we look at it, our people had to travel throughout the world because the opportunities did not exist at home. But wherever they went, they brought with them the love of the homeland. And when we needed support from those countries, the countries of their adoption, that support was forthcoming. We saw it during the peace process in Ireland, in the north of Ireland. We saw the involvement of President Clinton and other people as well. And again, Britain, even at that time, they tried to obstruct. But always remember, when it came to Ireland, Britain was a tyrannical power. We need only look at the manner in which they treated our people. In 1916, as would happen in no part of the world, they executed our finest leaders, and a summary execution at that. But the Irish people, with the tenacity of character, still bounced back. That was the important thing. That's why we must respect that freedom, and we must look at opportunities as well. There are many ways that we can assist, and there are many ways we can help. But one thing is certain, if we do not remember who gave us that freedom, and remember their families as well, because the families suffered, there is no doubt about that. Families suffered. We know what happened during the Black and Tan period. There were no respecters there of men, women, or children. The whole idea was oppression. The whole idea was conquest. The whole idea was subjugation. That's what was important. And yet, isn't it amazing that in every community there was a little pulse always there, that when the opportunity came, we'd organize and we would resist. What's expected of us today? Well, I would suggest that we should look around at those who are less fortunate than ourselves. That would have been James Connolly's dictum at all times. It's very easy to suggest that we have our freedom, we have control of our destiny, we have progress, there's no doubt about that. But in every community there are people who need help and assistance. And it's only when we reach out in the same way as the Patriots reached out, it's only when we do that and look out for those people who are vulnerable in society. Therefore, we all have a contribution to make in developing that country today. The other thing I would say to you is there are marks of identity, marks of cultural identity. You sense it in Croke Park, you sense it at the Flagole, you sense it in community volunteerism. That is exactly the potential that we have today. So in gathering here at this rural setting, and in marching up behind the Sean Tracy band, I don't know if you felt what I felt coming up there, but I had a sense of, I suppose, a sense of position, a sense of place, a sense of tradition as well as we marched behind the band and then assembled here and entertained in song and in music. And the young lady who read the proclamation so well, there are so many things today to give us confidence and to tell us that we certainly can undo the wrongs that have been done, and we can certainly work towards building a better Ireland together. But like all wars, there are casualties. Yes, there are casualties. And people don't want casualties. But always remember, the only reason that we had a war in Ireland was because Britain made a specific decision to release on us a war for which there was no justification. They had no mandate. Their mandate disappeared with the election. And the only mandate they had before that was the mandate of conquest. The war was not started by the volunteers. The war was not started by our Republicans. The war can be laid at the doorstep of Britain. And today we have a bigger issue. We look at Brexit, and I'm not going to go into that because I always feel at a commemoration we should stay with the central story. But I would say this much. We have discovered one thing, that our position in Europe is strong, that Europe sees us as a good member. And before there was ever an EU, we were good Europeans. Our missioners traveled throughout the world. Our peacekeepers went throughout the world. We were always a giving nation. And today there are 70 million people of Irish extraction throughout the world. We're no longer small in stature. We're big in stature. We're big in potential. We're big in achievement as well. And we should look to the Irish race throughout the world, because that is where our strength is. So when we leave here today, my hope would be, as I know it would have been John Hassett's hope in the past, one great man. If there were more John Hassetts, we'd have a much greater Ireland. But I will say this much, that when we leave here today, we don't leave with any bitterness in our heart. We don't leave trying to create division. We don't leave for any personal motivation or entertainment. We leave here because we are committing ourselves to building the greatest monument that could ever be built, and that is a living monument, a monument where all the children of the nation are cherished equally, as in the proclamation. That's precisely what we should be doing. So let's leave this spot today, and let's go away saying, yes, we will build that Ireland. We will ensure that the memory of our patriots will be there and kept fresh for all times. And I have no doubt in my mind that is the will of all the people, north and south. And I think the greatest wish of all we have, and I have a feeling that we're close to this, that one day we will realize the full aspiration and the full mission of all our patriots, and that is one united Ireland.
That was a wonderful, but I've had it last before, last before, and there's one little story, he spoke about the misery he had to go through, but there's one little story I told a few times, and there's such a big crowd here. won't take a minute. I'd like to say it again. It was during the troubled times. They lived very near me, Barlows. I wasn't there that time, of course. But anyway, the three sons were on the run, and the wife was at home. Like all other wives, I think the women played a major role in our achievements. But the weather was very bad. The hay wasn't able to be saved. There was no silage that time, and the neighbours were in trouble getting their own done. So look, she hadn't enough of fodder for her cattle. So she decided in month of November that she'd sell the cows, and that to relieve the problem that was arising in front of her. But they went into, the cows were marched into the very town to the sales, into the market yard. And just when the sale was about to start, two lorry loads of tans drove in, cleared all the people that were going to buy the cattle home. Told them to go home. They're not. So that created another problem. But it didn't. It made a successful ending, because all the neighbours decided they'd take one cow and two cows and one cow and two cows, and the whole band of cows were distributed. And she got them back in the spring when they started to calve. So just the thing I said, in all the bad things that the tanners did and everyone, that was one good little deed. I just have a few just a minute now, just a few people to thank. To thank the Bradley County Council for their finance, help and support to today's event. Stewarding for keeping the traffic moving. STAR system for public address systems. Also the STAR systems have they've done a video of today's events here, which will be on sale in about 3 weeks from any community member. Now all members of the 3rd Parade Brigade as well that helped out. And finally I want to thank our long-standing friend Sean Tracy Pipe Band. They have never left us down yet. Never left us down yet. The ambulance service here today as well. I can't think of it all, thanks to my helpers. but I'll ask the Sean Tracy Pipe Band now to play the national anthem. And thanks ever much for such it's heartening for all of us to keep things going when we see such a marvellous crowd. And we'll be here again in 12 months. And hopefully you'll all come back, and even half of you come back, we'll be happy. Thanks very much. Sheriff Connie,